The movie begins with Lila, a beautiful and young English teacher who has endured years of domestic violence at the hands of her husband. After reaching her breaking point, she finally gathered the courage to leave him. Yet, even after escaping her painful past, she continued to struggle with emotional scars and loneliness. Hoping for a fresh start, Lila moved to a new city and secured a teaching position at a local high school. On her first day, the principal introduced her to the history teacher, assigned to show her around. Meanwhile, in another part of the city, we meet Jason, a troubled 19-year-old living with his family. His middle-class household, consisting of his parents, a younger sister, and an older brother, struggled financially. His older brother had turned to selling drugs to help support the family, but was eventually caught and sent to prison. Determined to keep Jason from following the same path, his parents constantly pressured him to focus on his studies and build a better future. But Jason had little interest in school. He found academics tedious and had already been expelled from multiple institutions. Despite his parents' hopes, he had begun dabbling in illegal activities, selling drugs to earn quick money, not for himself, but to support his younger sister's education. He wanted her to have opportunities he never did. Back at school, Lila taught her class while Jason sat in the back, trying to stay unnoticed. Outside the classroom, he wasted time with reckless friends, getting into street fights and experimenting with drugs. One day, as Lila was alone in the classroom, Andrew, the PE teacher, approached her. He praised her engaging teaching style, flashing a warm smile. Lila returned the gesture, and their casual conversation began a new connection. That night, overwhelmed by loneliness, Lila called her mother. Emotions welled up inside her as they spoke, and she fought back tears. In this unfamiliar city, without friends or family nearby, the weight of isolation pressed heavily on her heart. The following day after school, Jason hesitantly approached Lila. "I need help with writing," he admitted quietly. When she asked what the assignment was, he mumbled that he had to write about himself but didn't know where to begin. Sensing his reluctance, Lila reassured him, "You can tell me anything. Whatever you say stays between us." But Jason wasn't ready to open up. Without another word, he turned and walked away. Concerned, Lila followed him, but before she could reach him, the history teacher intercepted her. "Students like Jason?" he said dismissively. "They're beyond help." Lila's jaw tightened. "No student is a lost cause," she replied firmly. "To me, they're all equal." The next day, while reviewing student records, Lila came across Jason's file. It revealed a pattern of transfers and poor grades, deepening her worry. "He's slipping through the cracks," she thought. Determined to reach him, she resolved to pay closer attention. Later, in class, students took turns presenting their poems. When Jason's turn came, he stood nervously, his voice low but steady as he read. His words were raw, unfiltered, full of pain and truth. Lila listened, moved by the vulnerability in his voice. After class, she stopped him. "Your poem was exceptional," she said. "If you put that same passion into your studies, there's no limit to what you could do." For the first time in years, Jason smiled. No one had ever believed in him before. The next day, Andrew, the PE teacher, caught Lila in the hallway. "Some of us are going to the pub tonight," he said with an easy grin. "You should come." Needing a distraction, she agreed. That evening, Lila laughed and danced with Andrew, unaware that Jason was also at the pub, watching from the shadows with his friends. Seeing her so carefree made him want to join in, but he stayed back, content just to see her happy. The following morning, Lila spotted Jason loitering outside the school gates during class hours. Frowning, she confronted him when he finally returned. "Skipping class isn't the answer," she said sternly, pulling him aside. Then softening, she made him an offer. "If you stay after school, I'll tutor you, just 30 minutes a day." To her surprise, he agreed. From then on, they met daily after class, but Jason struggled to focus, not on the lessons, but on her. The way her eyes lit up when she explained something, the patience in her voice. Without realizing it, his admiration grew into something deeper. And Lila, she had no idea. That night, Lila sat alone in her apartment, the weight of loneliness pressing down on her. She stared blankly at the walls, yearning for someone who could truly understand her, someone to share her burdens with. The sudden knock at her door startled her from her thoughts. When she opened it, her breath caught. Jason stood before her, his face bruised, nose bleeding, clothes torn and disheveled from what was clearly a violent altercation. Without hesitation, she pulled him inside, her teacher's instincts overriding her surprise. Jason tried to brush it off, mumbling about just needing to clean up before leaving, but Lila noticed the heavy rain outside and insisted on driving him home. As they drove through the darkened streets, Lila attempted small talk, asking about his family. Jason tensed immediately, his jaw clenching as he stared out the window. The silence between them grew heavy until Jason suddenly pointed to a scenic overlook. The city lights spread out before them like scattered jewels, the view breathtaking even through the rain-streaked windshield. In that unexpected moment of beauty, Jason confessed he'd seen her dancing at the pub and wanted to learn. Lila laughed at first but humored him, showing him basic steps. But as they moved together, Jason's hands began lingering too long, his touches becoming more intentional. Lila abruptly pulled away, her voice firm as she reminded him of their student-teacher boundaries. Jason nodded, but the look in his eyes told her this wasn't over. The next morning brought a surprising development. Jason's mother discovered his drastically improved test scores. When she pressed him about this sudden academic turnaround, Jason simply smiled and credited his new teacher. Meanwhile, he found himself scrolling through Lila's social media profiles, his attraction growing into something deeper. That evening, fate intervened again when both ended up at the same pub, Lila with Andrew, Jason with his friends. When Andrew's probing questions about her failed marriage became too much, Lila excused herself to the restroom. Jason followed, and in a moment of reckless passion, pulled her into a searing kiss. For one breathless second, Lila responded before reality came crashing back. She pushed him away, flustered, making excuses to leave immediately. But Jason wasn't ready to let go. He appeared outside her home later that night, pleading for a chance to apologize. What began as an apology quickly turned into a heartfelt confession of his feelings. Lila tried to deny her own growing attraction, but when Jason kissed her again, she couldn't resist. Their passion ignited, crossing lines they both knew shouldn't be crossed. Afterwards, Lila insisted this could never happen again, though neither truly believed it. In the days that followed, their secret relationship continued. During an extra study session, Jason tried to steal another kiss, but Lila stopped him, reminding him of the need for discretion. Instead, he surprised her with a delicate necklace, a tender gesture that touched her deeply. That night, Lila confided in her mother about her feelings for someone younger, receiving unexpected support. Their relationship seemed to be flourishing in secret, until Jason's mother, suspicious of her son's behavior, checked his phone and discovered the damning photos of him with Lila. The confrontation came swiftly. Jason's mother stormed into the school, her fury barely contained as she warned Lila to stay away from her son. The tense exchange didn't go unnoticed. Nancy, the history teacher, began piecing together the truth, while the principal sensed something amiss. That night at home, Jason's mother confronted him directly, demanding he end whatever was happening with his teacher. But Jason, more defiant than she'd ever seen him, declared his love for Lila before storming out into the night, leaving his furious mother and their fractured relationship behind. Lila sat clutching her phone, her fingers trembling as she finally confessed the truth to her mother. "The younger man I mentioned, he's my student," she admitted, her voice barely above a whisper. The line went silent for a long moment before her mother responded, her tone laced with horror. "This is wrong. You need to end this immediately." The words struck Lila like a physical blow, but before she could respond, a knock at the door interrupted them. Jason stood on her doorstep, his expression hopeful, but Lila's face twisted in anger. "How did your mother find out about us?" she demanded, her voice shaking. "I told you not to tell anyone." Jason recoiled, his eyes widening. "I just found out today too. I swear I didn't say anything." But Lila was already spiraling, her professional life flashing before her eyes. "You need to leave," she said firmly. "If anyone at school finds out, I'll be fired." Hours later, Jason returned, this time with a bouquet of flowers clutched tightly in his hand. Lila opened the door, her resolve wavering as she took in his earnest expression. After a long pause, she sighed and stepped aside, letting him in. That night, they found solace in each other's arms once more, their connection undeniable even as the risks loomed larger than ever. The next morning, as they sat together in the quiet light of dawn, Jason voiced what they'd both been avoiding. "Sooner or later, people will find out," he said softly. Lila nodded, her brow furrowed with worry. "We have to figure something out before this spirals out of control." Jason reached for her hand. "I have money saved up. We could leave, start fresh somewhere else." But Lila shook her head. "Running away isn't the answer," she whispered, though her heart ached at the thought of losing him. The next day at school, their carefully constructed facade crumbled when Andrew caught sight of them, Jason's fingers intertwined with Lila's, their closeness unmistakable. Andrew's expression darkened as the pieces fell into place, his jaw tightening with barely contained anger. Later that evening, as Lila stayed late to finish grading papers, Andrew cornered her in the empty classroom. His hands were rough as he pushed her against the wall, his breath hot against her neck. Lila froze, her mind reeling as he groped her. His threats hissed in her ear. When he finally released her, she fled, her entire body shaking. That night, Jason arrived at her house to find her curled on the couch, her eyes red-rimmed and distant. "What's wrong?" he asked, his voice edged with concern. The dam broke. Lila told him everything, her words tumbling out between shaky breaths. Jason's hands clenched into fists, his knuckles turning white. "You have to go to the police," he growled. But Lila shook her head violently. "He threatened me," she whispered. "If I report him, he'll expose us." The next day, Jason's rage boiled over the moment he spotted Andrew in the school hallway. Without a word, he lunged, his fist connecting with Andrew's jaw with a sickening crack. The fight erupted in seconds, desks toppling as students screamed. By the time the police arrived, Jason was pinned to the ground, his face bloodied as they cuffed him. Later, Jason's mother arrived at the station to bail him out, her lips pressed into a thin line. As they stepped outside, she spotted Lila waiting nearby and froze. "Stay away from my son," she spat, her voice icy, before dragging Jason away. Heartbroken and desperate, Lila knew what she had to do. That night, she confronted Andrew, her voice steady despite the fear coursing through her. "What you did to me was caught on the school's security cameras," she lied, watching as his face drained of color. "Drop the charges against Jason or I go to the police." Andrew's sneer faltered, and after a tense silence, he relented. The next day, Jason arrived at her door, relief washing over his features as he told her the charges had been dropped. But Lila's expression stopped him cold. "I'm leaving the city," she said softly. Jason's smile vanished. "What? Why?" Tears welled in Lila's eyes as she cupped his face. "Because it's wrong. I can't do this anymore." Jason's breath hitched, his hands gripping hers like a lifeline. "No, please," he begged, his voice breaking, but Lila was resolute. "You have your whole life ahead of you," she whispered before pulling away. That night, Jason crumpled in his mother's arms, his sobs echoing through the quiet house. Meanwhile, Lila boarded a bus, the city lights fading behind her as she stared out the window, her heart heavy but her path finally clear.